Hi, Jessica. Thank you so much for meeting with me today. I'm really excited to talk to you about all things weddings and ceremonies. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up, and what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, okay. I grew up in Vermont, actually, in a really small town of about 500 or 600 people. And I was adopted,
Were you?
actually, yes. So, my family is a very multi-ethnic, multinational, multiracial kind of family. We grew up in a very insulated town where everyone knew everyone. And my parents owned the only general store in town. So I grew up kind of behind the counter, running the register, really honing those early on, like soft skills and customer service. And it's funny to think how that's kind of translated its way forward for me.
So, when you were growing up in Vermont, were you and you were like going to school, like, because I read that you studied sociology and anthropology and public administration, and you have your real property solutions business, and you're also a wedding officiant for Carissa Ceremonies. So,
Yes.
like, what did you want to be when you grew up, and like, why such a diverse range of fields?
Yes. Well, I think that I always thought, kind of go out in the world and seek your passion. I'm learning now. I just turned 45 a couple days ago, and I'm
Happy
learning.
birthday.
Thank you. I'm just learning now that, maybe it's more about letting your passion find you. But I definitely have been on this journey. I really always wanted to explore. I had a lot of varied interests. I traveled the world. And I think once I got to undergrad, sociology and anthropology spoke to me the most about sort of those passions that I had inside. And then from there, I went on and I really did a lot of work in education, higher education, and in nonprofits. I really enjoyed helping people, empowering people through education or other means to transform their lives. From that, I sort of sparked this passion with doing weddings, performing wedding ceremonies. It all sort of started and stemmed from my own wedding ceremony years ago. We did not belong to a church. We weren't having a large wedding. Truth be told, we didn't do a lot of planning. I really wanted a small ceremony, but in looking for the person who could actually perform the ceremony, we sort of found this gap of, not really a lot of people available. So we ended up with a town justice in a small town near where I grew up. And it wasn't a super personal experience. It was sort of dry. It felt like kind of going to the DMV, but you walk away with a ring on your finger sort of thing. And so I started to think right away, well, I love writing. I love different cultural expressions and traditions. I love weddings and people. And I thought, and I don't mind getting up and speaking in front of people. So I thought, well, maybe I could blend all that together and become ordained and begin performing wedding ceremonies. So that's
So
what
you,
I
you
did.
love being in front of people, because that's, I think, one of the things. It's like it's a prerequisite if you're going to be performing weddings.
Yes. Yeah, I would say love, I guess. I
I mean,
I don't mind it. I
yeah.
don't mind it. And 11 years later, hundreds of ceremonies later, it just feels like literally like putting your shoe on and tying your shoe, like a very natural kind of thing at this point. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
So, how did you come up with the name Carissa Ceremonies for your wedding officiating business?
Good question. So I mentioned that I'm adopted. I knew very little about my birth history growing up, but what my parents did know, they shared with me. So one thing that we knew was that I was given a name at birth, and it was Carissa. And when I was going through the Chambers program for entrepreneurs, one of the sessions was all about like creating your name or figuring out, what you wanted your business to be called. And I had something very generic. I don't even think it even referenced anything to do with weddings or anything, and it just didn't feel good. And with that cohort of entrepreneurs that I was in class with, I started to think, well, maybe I should have ceremonies in it. And so I need another C word, and what should it be? And how do I bring that in? And we worked on something around like telling your personal story. And as I did, and the name Carissa came across my lips, I thought, that's it. It'll be Carissa Ceremonies. And so sort of, it was a nice way to kind of also honor that part of my history too. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. What are the steps to becoming a wedding officiant, and how long have you owned Carissa Ceremonies? I think you said 11 years.
Yes. Yes, 11 years, which is incredible to say. My steps to becoming a wedding officiant, I literally went online like anyone can do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was a free certification ordination program. Took 24 hours. I answered a couple questions and, made sure that it was legitimate.
Right.
And that the...
Do you remember what the website was?
Universal Ministries, I believe.
Okay.
Yes. Whatever service it was, I wanted to make sure that it really, even though it wasn't necessarily that I was going to go out and have a congregation or anything like that, I just wanted to make sure that it was very inclusive and supported the beliefs and the values that I have, which it did. So checked all of those boxes.
Right.
But that was how I sort of got my start. And then I have a good friend who does this as well. And she took me on a couple of her gigs so I could sort of shadow her and get my feet wet. And after I saw her do it, I thought, there's no reason I can't do this. So I jumped right in.
That's cool. What was your first wedding like?
So I love this couple. We're friends on Facebook to this day. I don't know that they know they were my first wedding, even to this day. It's fine, but I remember being petrified, thinking, like, I had that thought, like, why can't I do this? But then when the day came around, I was like, who am I to think that I can get up and do this? But I remember talking to my friend. She was great, really coaching me, and she just said, you have to go in and just act as if this isn't your first wedding. And so I went, and it was beautiful. It was at, I think it was at the Rensselaerville Institute. But I stood up and performed the entire ceremony. And as I remember it, without a hitch, well, with a hitch, but without a issue. And after that, and hearing people say, oh my gosh, it was so beautiful. That was so, and all I could think was, I know how to improve on this. Like, I can now really do this and hit the ground. So it was very exciting.
So funny. And like the time, it's crazy how timing of everything works, because I know, you and I have been chatting about this for quite some time. And then all of a sudden recently, a friend of mine, she asked me to officiate her wedding, and it's coming up very soon. So as someone I've never done this before, what should I do to prepare? Like, besides, I'm like ordained now, I guess.
Congratulations.
And thank you.
Welcome.
I'm like, yay.
Welcome.
It was like really, really simple.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this should not be this simple, but it was. And I kind of am having those feelings like, who am I to be able to do this and officiate? So, like, what advice can you give me?
First of all, you're amazing to be able to do it, and someone has chosen you. So, just kind of embrace that, soak that up. I always feel so honored when a couple chooses me, and 99% of the time, we don't know each other. So I just really carry it as such an honor. But if it's someone who knows you, you already have all the belief in you that you need, so you're perfect for this. I have actually informally coached a few people in your situation. And you're making me think right now that maybe I need to do like a side service of just
definitely
helping people and preparing people to do this.
Think you should.
So, and I'll do exactly with you what I did with the others. I'll give you resources, everything. Okay.
Okay.
But to prepare, I would just I mean, my approach has always been that each ceremony, in terms of the couple, it's their vision and their voice. I really didn't, I don't stand up with any kind of agenda. I don't have anything I come to say except for what the bride and groom really want communicated in their ceremony. So it's a little different with you because you're friends, you have a relationship. They may want to hear something personal from you, but I would say to just do what you can to find out from the couple, what they want really communicated that day.
What do you do? Like, what are your steps?
Sure.
I know, like, if you don't know the person, it's kind of like, it's such a personal thing.
It is. It really is. So my main goal is to just understand as much as possible what the couple's vision is. And a lot of times they don't have one. So it's that process of helping them uncover that. And I meet with couples in person as well as over the phone or Skype or something like that. But as much as I can, I like to meet face to face. I feel like you really can kind of tune in better to people's energies, their anxieties or whatever it is, and kind of address that a little bit more and get to know each other. It's really important. But I meet with the couples and we start out kind of talking about their journey to this point.
Like, do you take notes?
Yes. Yeah, I take extensive notes. It's all complete chicken scratch, but I turn those notes around and provide them to my couples afterward because there's a lot sometimes that comes out that they haven't even expressed before or don't realize that that's something that we want to include in the ceremony. And because I have these years of experience and being a part of so many ceremonies, I can really almost cherry pick and say, like,
sure,
now that would be an incredible line to say at this point, or, that reminds me of a really unique tradition. Maybe you guys want to do that, or it's such a fun process, and it gives me that opportunity to study people. Going back to sociology and anthropology, I really love, and it's sort of investigative journalism in a way, like getting to know their lives. But I've always thought that maybe I should also do almost like a coffee table book or something about either how we met or proposals.
Yeah.
Because I always want to hear that from my couples, and I've heard hundreds, and they're all completely unique, different, fun, emotional. But I always want to talk about that when I first meet the couple. And a lot of times I bring elements of that back into the ceremony, and it's resulted in doing very special and unique rituals with couples. I had a couple who were married on top of a ski mountain. In the summer, not in the winter, but up on a high platform with wind whipping, and you're up in the top of the mountains, and they, I think, met, or they had a just tradition while they were dating of craft. They loved craft beer, and they'd go on like craft beer trails and things. And I think maybe when he proposed, they had plastic goblets that they poured beer in. So we did a little like beer tasting, beer tradition as part of the ceremony. It was something that was really important to them and fun to them. And
cool.
Their friends and family loved that because it really reflected them. So there's literally the sky's the limit. And I just, again, I get so much joy out of helping people kind of uncover what they want to include.
The sky's the limit, both figuratively and literally, if you're on top of a mountain.
True. True. Riding a chairlift to the top, yes.
How do you manage strong personalities, like a bridezilla, for example? Or maybe you don't, but when you're preparing, or like, what if the couples have different opinions on what they want? Like, how do you manage that?
Would you believe me if I told you I've never dealt with a bridezilla?
That's awesome.
Not once. In 11 years, 30 to 50 ceremonies a year. And I can honestly say that. Now, again, I don't see them all day long, the day of, or in all of the intricacies of planning. So who knows? But honestly, I just feel like I'm blessed. I've attracted literally the best people to work with. And as far as differing opinions or strong opinions, I wouldn't even say I see a lot of that in the couples themselves, but they do come in and say, we feel really strongly about this, but our families really want to see this. Or they're concerned that we're not
Like
doing
what?
it like this. Like we're not being married in a church, or we're two different religions. And so we're trying to kind of just accommodate everyone, which we always find a way to magically do, but I try to keep the focus on it being about the couple. But there are ways and there are little elements that you can add in a ceremony that maybe reflect or draw from a certain, faith tradition or something that for mom on this side would be enough. Like, oh, okay, that familiar element is in here, so she feels more comfortable. So if anything, I would say more so that's more of the, I don't want to say, I'll say challenge. I was trying to think of a very positive word for it. But I don't see a lot of that per se. Again, I just feel very
Families,
blessed.
like, people come out of the woodwork with their opinions once you're getting ready to get married. So,
yes. If you're the first in your family getting married, if you're an only child, generally people's parents, if they're married, were married in a very different time, probably in a very different way. And so there's a lot of, there can be just general like nervousness. People are just wanting it to kind of go off well. So one thing I do, although I'm not there with the couple all day for the wedding, I do arrive early for a couple reasons. But one of them is that so I can, the day of, speak to any, last minute, concerns or issues or things like that are ceremony focused and directed. I really like to be on hand for that and be a resource, not just for the bride and groom, but for their families. And a lot of times I'll, in the relationship I develop with the bride and groom, or the bride and bride, or the groom and groom, is I'll, learn that, mom may kind of be stuck here. So that's going to be something we feel might rear its head the day of. And so I know to just kind of keep an eye on things, or, kind of cut things off at the pass.
Yep.
As best I can. I always recommend a rehearsal.
Yep.
The day before the ceremony. It's not a necessity. I've certainly done plenty of ceremonies where there's not a rehearsal, but most people want that. It helps kind of calm the nerves of everyone. We always kind of laugh because if we can go through things to the point where, it sounds terrible, but where, let's say, mother of the bride cries at the rehearsal, she generally cries less at the wedding. It's not as like full on emotional. Like we kind of get it out of our system, which helps too, because I think people are very nerved up about the emotion that's going to come out the day of. So rehearsals are generally really fun, but we do try to get some of that emotion out, get it to the surface, get a handle on it
right
before we go in live. But it helps at the rehearsal. A lot of times that's the first time I'm meeting the families. So it helps them kind of get to know me ahead of time in a more relaxed setting, and understand that, if there is something the day of that's really, on their mind or they're concerned about, they can certainly talk to me ahead of time and we'll figure it out for sure.
What is this is another question that I asked from a friend who's getting married next summer.
Okay.
And she wanted to know, what is your advice for that person listening who is getting married that wants to write their own vows? Do you have any tips?
Yes. I love when couples want to write their own vows. When it comes to working with me, I always provide numerous resources to my couples. So we have our meeting. I take all my chicken scratch notes. We figure out the general elements they want involved. And then I sort of type that up, turn it around to them, highlight their homework, and then send them a lot of resources that help support that homework. So if I need you to figure out what you want to say in your vows, here are multiple examples of vows. Here are multiple examples of ceremonies that I've written and performed in the past that include personal vows, so you can kind of get a sense. But I definitely want couples to take time, do their homework, and then individually, if they need to, talk to me. So if you're writing vows, you generally aren't going to share them with the other until the day of. But I want to be that resource that you can bounce ideas off of me. And what I hear most from couples that they're most concerned about, it's not really even about what's being said. It's just, I don't want to write really long vows and she writes short ones, or I don't want to write short ones. And, so they're always like, can you look at mine? And you don't have to tell me what she said, but can you tell me if it, and generally I don't make any edits to their vows. And I even if it's a little bit of a white lie, it's like, oh no, it's funny. You guys kind of wrote the same amount, because they're so beautiful and so heartfelt. It's one of those, who am I to even touch this? I just want to caretake it, get it to that point where you exchange it at the altar. But the personal vows are kind of like the cherry on top for a ceremony. And one thing I see that couples are doing more and more, at least with me, is that they will write some personal vows, but then choose more traditional vows that they both like and exchange those as well. So they'll sort of do the personal and then do the more traditional, which works for the couples. I have to think it probably works for parents too if they want to hear certain language said, promises made, things like that. But it's funny, the longer I'm in this, in terms of standing up in front of people and performing, I don't know if it's just turning 45 or what's going on, but I am so darn emotional. I have at times literally had to hold it together especially while the personal vows are being shared. And sometimes couples don't need me or don't want me to look at their vows. They want them to be completely off the cuff or just, surprise. And I mean, they're so incredibly emotional and heartfelt. And I feel like I could tear up now telling you. That's very difficult, standing in front. I mean, literally, your officiant should probably not be weeping in the middle of your ceremony, but there have been times where it's like I have to turn away, and just so beautiful. And I don't know any human who could stand in the middle of all that energy at that moment and not be moved by it. Really beautiful, really beautiful. And I feel like just kind of like such a proud mama, they did it and it really expressed themselves so beautifully. So that's a tough part of the job, it turns out.
Wow.
But definitely not a downside at all.
I try to tell people, friends who are getting married, to invest in their marriage more than their wedding day, because their marriage is forever. Your wedding day, although it's important, it is one day. And you may disagree. I'm
in the business and I don't disagree. So it really is. That's absolutely right. And you want to be as present during that one day as possible, because all of those memories, in those moments, that's what's going to kind of be that, not that that's, you've had another foundation, but that's definitely like the foundation to the start of your marriage. And you want to be able to carry that forward, not all the other details about, the favors and the, signature drink or whatever else is going on, which are all great things. I love a great wedding, but I think you're absolutely right.
Can you quickly share maybe a mistake or a moment where you've learned from your mistake or a failure? Honestly, how did it save you from getting a really bad review? Because I know when you own your own business, reviews are everything.
Make or break, right?
So,
yeah.
Do you mind sharing?
I don't. And I think, 11 years. So 11 years ago, while reviews were still important, there's been such a shift to everything, being about your online presence and your reviews online and instant reviews and making or breaking you. I just took Uber to work, so it's like immediately 5-star, I know what it means to this person working this business. So I think I was just lucky that maybe this was earlier on at the start, and that I had a gracious and forgiving couple in the end, because I did not get a negative. I didn't get any review, but I'll take that over negative any day.
Yep.
My most supreme failure, we all fail at things. I own them. I embrace them. But my most supreme failure in this was I overbooked myself, essentially. I had 3 weddings, and they each had a rehearsal attached to them over the course of one weekend. And they were all here in the capital region, but, they weren't next door to each other. So I was building in travel time and getting from one place to the other and just juggling. And if you really think about that, that's a lot of, families you're meeting for the first time. And a couple of the venues I think were new to me at that time. And so just a lot of details to manage, and where I thought I could do it, I ended up being extremely late to a ceremony. And I say extremely because I do always arrive early. I always cushion, and I did at that time too. I just didn't keep track of the time the way that I should have. But I always cushion my arrival, so I'm at least an hour early to the ceremony. And this is after we've also rehearsed too. So in this case, I was probably closer to an hour late for the ceremony. So I was very late for what I like to be. And it was...
like the wedding was at 1 and you got there at 2 kind of a thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So...
I mean, you don't have to share the whole story, but...
I think it's important because it was an extreme failure to the couple. Long story short, I did arrive. I did perform the ceremony. Talk about, swallowing everything and walking down that aisle and every eye on you. And
everyone knows, the bride and groom are here and where's our...
Yes. What I've taken from this is to be able to kind of, pan out from, get out of your own head, Jessica. This is not about you. It's not about your failure. It's not literally think of the impact to everything and everyone. So starting with the bride and groom, if you're at a wedding and it's delayed, the thought is oh, the bride has cold feet or the groom has cold feet. So I hated that I even, if I did, caused that thought in either of their minds or anyone in the audience or anything like that. That's when they were obviously both there ready to get married. So, but the other thing was, I'm not the only professional involved in the ceremony, and I'm not the only one who arrives early for a reason so that I can, provide the best service possible. But you have makeup artists, you have musicians, you have people who are creating the food and things like that. And all of these things have to be timed, right? And so when I started to think about just the magnitude of this error, it really caused me to, really buckle down and re-examine what I was doing and how I wanted to do it. And
I have goosebumps because it's so true, in business.
Yeah. And it, right now I'm getting all the physical sensation of it again because, it has stayed with me, but in a powerful way that it just guides me to say, as much as you may want me on that date and I may want to say, I'll book another, let me really think about this and understand. And I always want to assure my couples that not only am I going to arrive on time, I'm going to arrive early. And if I don't, I'll have a replacement there for you. And so none of that happened in this case. But I will say probably what saved me, and I called my friend who was kind of my mentor in the beginning, and I just said, I have messed up. I was on the way, and I was just I'm sure all the blood had drained from my face, and I was I don't even know how I'm going to get it. And I had the pressure of, okay, you've arrived late, you've already messed up. You can't also not perform an all-out amazing ceremony, right? So I had to be at my absolute best on top of all this that was going on. And she just said to me, she said, this is what you do. She said, you walk in and you go to the bride and the groom and you go to the, mother of the bride, father, the key people, parents and the couple, and you get in front of them. If you can take their hand if they let you, and you look them directly in the eye and you apologize sincerely one time. Don't fall all over it and all over yourself, and don't bring anything into it. Just give them the most sincere apology and say, let's do this. Like, let's go. I'm ready. I am so very sorry. I'm going to make this right and do your job. And that's what I did. And I also had, couples generally pay me in cash at the rehearsal for the ceremony the next day. So I don't do anything with it until after the ceremony. Had the money, literally just put it in the father of the bride's hand and said, let's do this. Went and performed the ceremony. Tried to not make eye contact with the other vendors that I still work with to this day. And it was literally the hottest day in whatever month it was that summer. And it was an outdoor wedding. And so everyone's makeup is melting and people are dying of heat. And, I was no one's favorite that day.
But you're owning that now.
I am. I even owned it then.
I know, but
I didn't vomit. I mean, I literally had all those.
But
urges.
You grew so much from that experience. And, if it had to happen to you, thank God it happened in the beginning and not now when, I don't know. But that's
it was one
such
of those
a powerful story.
It was one of those things where I thought, should I tell them I had a flat tire? Or should I, tell them I'm sick? Or and it was no, you get your ass in your car, excuse me. And you get down there and you do this. I mean, there's nothing else you can do at this point than just make it as right as you can.
Thank you for sharing that story. I think
You're welcome.
It's so important for people to hear that. It's so important. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What do you typically do for lunch?
Oh, good.
Switching gears.
Yes. I drink my lunch in the form of coffee. It's terrible. I usually don't stop to eat lunch during the day. I don't. But I do eat a very good breakfast.
Okay.
And I snack throughout the day. But,
okay.
I generally don't stop for lunch. Never have in any...
Really?
Not really. I mean, if I am, it's literally work. I've worked in nonprofits, right? So it's literally, I don't have time to get up. There's always something to do, someone to help. Yeah. So you work right through.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How can people contact you if they, maybe want to reach out to you if they have a wedding coming up or in a couple of years? What's the best way to reach you?
After that story?
Maybe I should have asked at the beginning.
That's okay. It's been years. So they can reach me. I have a Facebook page for Carissa Ceremonies. So they can go there and message me, reach out there, or my email is Carissa Ceremonies at live.com. I had to think about that. I'm sorry. And phone number that they can reach me at is 518-633-1168. Any of those ways work, and would be happy to talk to anybody about their ceremony.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. And I'm looking forward to seeing how your business grows.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to helping you with this upcoming ceremony.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was Jessica Pelton, wedding officiant and owner of Carissa Ceremonies. Visit our show notes at workinglunchpod.com for links, photos, and the video of our interview. Follow us on Instagram, we're at workinglunchpod, and if there's someone who you would like to be featured as a guest, send us a DM or email us at workinglunchpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to Working Lunch and subscribing. We really appreciate the love and support. And remember, your biggest strength is who you are.